Whether you're listening at home, at work, or anywhere, thanks for making ParaX part of your day. Your source for everything paranormal, ParaX.
And welcome back, everybody, right here to the Paranormal View on the ParaX Radio Network. I want to thank everyone for being with us tonight. Those listening in the chat room and those listening from around the world, we appreciate all of you. Tonight, we've got a great show going, and I'm going to welcome everybody back. We got Barbara Duncan with us.
Yeah, still here.
And we got Jeffrey Gould with us.
Hello, hello.
And we've got our great guest, Herman Stevenson.
Hi, everyone.
All right.
I'm happy to be here.
So, did it say anything to us?
No, it just beat.
It was probably saying
the battery died.
it was probably saying, "Who in the world's those idiots?"
So do those things have to warm up? Do they have to warm up at all?
No, generally speaking, they don't. But I try to, for lack of a better word, warm up the spirits. So I will turn it on and let it just go through a rambling mode where it just gives out a bunch of words. Every time something sparks, it'll come up with a number and it'll take that number and say that word. A lot of people used to, in the first place, when they first started coming out with the obelisk, actually was using that, and they call it dictionary mode. And he'd sit there with a whole list of words, and then you try to put together some kind of reasonable story based on the list of words and the order they're in, which didn't mean anything was accurate. It just meant that, that's what you were getting. And then I actually learned later on by actually watching some YouTube videos of some of the investigators in Great Britain who were getting both good and bad entities in the phonetic mode. So I started using the phonetic mode and found, this is where the spirits actually do talk to you, because they put together the words that you want to hear, or not necessarily want to hear, but the word that they're trying to get across to us by manipulating the different sensors in a particular pattern. So it would create that word. The same as actually our brain does when it hears us speak. It puts together, I think we have 8 phonomials, if I'm not mistaken. Those sounds create all of our words. And in the case of the obelisk using the phonetic mode, unfortunately, it only has room for 6 sensors, so they only actually have 6 of the 8 sounds in there, which comes back. One of my associates, whose name is Kathy, when it tries to call out for her, it only says at. For some reason, it doesn't have the K sound. So that's something you learn as it goes. We've kind of figured out eventually that what it was trying to say. So we had to listen for that fact that the K sound was missing. But other than that, if the spirit's ready to talk, it'll start talking.
So Barbara,
so it doesn't have to listen to or get a feel for any of the energy in the room. It just starts up and goes. Right.
It just starts up. And if they're familiar with the object, which in many cases involving me, they are, they know what equipment I use and what I set up. So they'll go right to it and start manipulating it to produce what they can use to communicate with me.
Okay, don't stop, Barbara.
Well, just trying to get a feel for this, as opposed to, say, some of the other units, like say a shack hack, for example, and whether or not, I'm trying to wrap my head around what you were just talking about with the phonetic use of the ovulus, and right. In a sense, isn't that what a shack hack is doing?
Well, in a sense, yes. The procedure behind the shack hack and all of the voice boxes that are used in that same type of work, it takes and scans the entire radio band, either AM or FM or both together, depending on what kind of models you got. And as it's scanning, it's only catching bits and pieces of the actual word. And through the scanning, it only allows those sounds to come through. I don't know whether it reduces the RF input or what, but for some reason, when you get the words, there'll be bits and pieces of different people talking, actually, but put together a word or words or group of words that is understandable and often close to what an answer would be to whatever question you ask. See, that I say things like that because it's important to know that the answers they're giving, are they relevant to your question? Because if they're not, then you're either getting an answer from somebody else's conversation or they're just rambling on, or the machine is rambling on. So, that's one thing always to be considered is what you're getting. Does it at least fit the conversation?
Well, and this brings up another point about the difference between using a dictionary version versus phonetic. And that is if they're versed in English and the Oxford's Unabridged Dictionary, it's probably fine. But what happens if you have somebody who speaks only French or Italian? Would the phonetic version of that actually pick that conversation up in French or Italian?
Well, I would hope it would, but you can see by my answer, having not experienced that problem, I wouldn't know. Although I have at Ramblewood gotten the obelisk speaking in German.
Okay.
And that was not, I don't know if it's pronounced right. Like some people can pronounce the words properly, some not. But it was understandable to me that I could get answers in German because Quakers actually spoke a German dialect.
Right.
So it made sense that I would get some German. Never did translate it. It could have been gibberish, and that might even better answer your question. I don't know. I never pursued it. I didn't have that much of a problem with that in that respect.
Okay.
I have heard of people picking a different language up like that. And it would be from somebody who spoke German or French or something like that.
Well, and it would make sense if you're capturing an EVP on, say, a tape recorder. But when you're looking at real-time voice box work, whether or not it would pick that up that way in a different language as opposed to just an English dictionary. Like I'm sitting here with this Ghost Radar, which is just plunking down English words, but no rhyme or reason to it, but it also doesn't speak any other language other than the English that's coming out. So it's interesting that, if you're thinking that it's picking up your own brain waves, etc., I think you were talking a little bit about that.
Right.
That since you only speak English, that it would only come out as English.
Correct. And it's a very good point. And I'm hoping when this virus goes away that I'll have the opportunity to try and get some circumstances where I can get it speaking another language. Maybe I could take a trip to Germany or France or something. That'd be so cool. But just to see what it would do, it's an interesting question, and it does have its whole list of interesting answers, I'm sure. But at the moment, I don't have an answer for it. But it certainly is in my bucket list now.
Got some questions from the chat room. Got one from Tabby Cat, and he wanted to know or she wanted to know rather, if you could
Yeah.
ask, what do you think of the SLS unit as an investigative tool, and have you ever used one?
Yes. This basically what when we were offline, I was basically talking about. I do think it is a good investigating tool. I started working with it more this past year. Finally getting some of my equipment that I was working on building to work, and also purchasing a portable unit, which helped me figure out what was wrong with what I was using, and get it to work. But yes, I do. And there's some people who feel that because you can get false readings with the SLS, you don't want to rely on it, which to me is a little dumb because, any equipment that gives you any readings is useful. And even if it's giving you a false reading, if you're a true scientist, you're going to want to know why it's giving false reading, and even work towards correcting that problem, and not just saying, "Oh, that's useless," because it doesn't do everything I wanted to do. Don't have all the bells and whistles, Like I need a car to get to work, but if it don't have everything a Cadillac's got, I'm gonna walk. I think it'd be too strenuous on abilities there. So, I've been experimenting. Like I say, I now have them working 360 degrees. So that's interesting in itself. And I've been doing that, working towards getting the thing to operate the best it can, because I want to see more information on vortexes. And that's really where I've been trying to get my equipment able to understand, because that's been a question in my mind for several years now about vortexes. And I've gotten several interesting pictures from vortexes. The spirits have actually come to me, giving me the answer of how to remove a single picture out of a vortex. And for those that really are not familiar with, a vortex is like a drain tube of spirits going in between our worlds and theirs. Think of a glass drain from your sink. And
so it's a wormhole.
Yes, it is. And if you got think of it as a glass tube, and you're pouring different colored paints down the drain, and let's say each one of those colors is a spirit. As they go down, they're going to swirl together and mix together and what have you. They've actually given me some photographic information as to how to separate some of that. And I've had some success with that, with some very interesting pictures. Right now, I'm working on something else, but it's part of the same thing, except that I'm getting sound waves that are like a rush of people talking. And although I've gotten this for several years, I've made notes of it, but I haven't really experimented in it, only because I was always too involved with something else at the time. But it's getting to a point now where I've gotten several emails from other people that are experiencing that particular phenomenon. So it's quickened me up. In other words, that experiment has moved up in value because more and more people are noticing it. And now I think it warrants looking up the answers to it. And in particular, to give an idea, back in the earlier days when I was working on the book, I do a lot of conversations with the dead girls at their gravesite. And what's interesting is the RT unit, most of the time, and I use other cameras and audio too, but what I was getting was I would ask a question, and then after I would ask the question, I would get this whoosh sound it almost sounded like wind going by. And then it would stop. And then I'd ask another question, and then I'd get it again. So in other words, the wind sound was appearing after each question. And I started thinking, wait a minute, is there an answer in that wind? You know, and I started using some earlier experiments where it was a private investigation where this woman had a problem with the dogs barking all the time and whining, not just barking, but actually whining, and they were all whining so at certain hours of the night. And I took the recordings of those animals' voices, and by superimposing language imprints, I was able to remove their whining and just keep the information that was in their whine. And what I found it to be was, it was the voice of a woman talking to them, telling them to get out of her kitchen. And it turned out to be her boyfriend's mother, who didn't like her in her mother's kitchen. So, you know, it proved to be someone. And it was so interesting because you could, when the dogs were whining, you could pick up a pattern, a human voice, the intelligence of it, okay? Even in spirit form, the intelligence of it is a noted sound. And I started being able to notice this more and more. And I know we got some spirits listening into us now because I can hear them in the background there. I could barely hear it, but they're in there. I hope someone else picks this up. In our audio, we're getting some wind sound in it.
No, that's my fan.
Well, now, one of you guys, one of the boxes, whether it was Barbara's or on your end, a few minutes ago, I heard something being said. Was that for you, Barbara?
It's saying round hall.
Round hall.
I actually left the room at the time.
Huh.
So I don't think it was me.
Wow.
And I just walked back in. Henry, just when you started speaking, you know, we're back now.
Yeah.
That's when I came right back into the room at that exact moment.
Well, while you was talking, I heard something said, and I think it was on Barbara's end. So, we got what it was. Really it's
still haven't said Mike yet.
Her fan is speaking to us. Really an android from this far-off planet.
Wow. So
it's one of the darlings. Right, Jeff?
Jeff, you still with us?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, okay. So I guess you're not going to be able to do very much investigating still for a while. What are you going to be doing when you're not able to investigate?
Well, I'm trying to catch up on stuff that got behind, because I still have quite a few investigations that are behind in analyzing. Unfortunately, okay. I don't have a crew like they do on all these TV shows. You know, I'll stay up an extra hour in the hotel tonight and go through all our audio. Right.
Yeah, I don't think they do that either. That's more stuff that I don't think it really works that way. So they just do it for the taped show. So
yeah.
That's what.
But what's amazing is people are so gullible they believe it though.
What'd you say, Barbara? Ask what?
Yeah, well, it keeps asking. It keeps saying ask.
Wow.
So I'm trying to figure out ask what.
What question do you have that you can't get out?
I have no idea what the thing says. But anyway.
What are you thinking about?
I have no idea what the thing wants to say.
Lay down on this couch and let's hear what's talking about it. How long have you had this problem?
I mean, how long would I have this ghost radar? Way too long.
Is that on your phone or is it another app?
No, it's on my Amazon Kindle.
Oh, okay.
It allows you to download apps. So, and anyway, it was a free app, so I decided to go ahead and do it.
Why not? Free.
Well, it's entertaining if it's nothing else, right?
Very true.
Have you ever tried to ask a question and see if you get an answer?
It doesn't really work that way that I can figure out.
Huh.
But there was a time when I was driving through, I had it on in the cemetery when I was taking photographs, and I was driving along a little road on a hill that has a retaining wall on it, and the thing popped up and said small wall.
Really?
So, I mean,
wow.
that's about the only time it's ever really had anything valid.
Huh. Well,
That's interesting.
yeah, that would be interesting.
But I'm trying to figure out if this thing is actually trying to interact with anybody else in the conversation, because it just keeps kind of spewing out words, but nothing really. So I'm wondering if the Ovulus does the same thing. If you're having a conversation with somebody, does it try to interject into a conversation at any time?
It can. In honesty, that was my first experience with one. A friend of mine, he had the Ovilus 1, the very first one built, which in the first one built didn't have a speaker or anything. You had to add an external amplifier and speaker to it, and they were all sitting around the kitchen table, actually at Dr. Samuel Mudd's house, and I had all my equipment. That was the early days, so I had all my equipment in a child's knapsack. So I had it sitting on the floor in the kitchen. And I walked in and I bent down and I'm, getting stuff out of my knapsack. And the person who had the Ovilus at that point, he kind of pointed it at me. And the Ovilus said, short. And I just kind of picked up on it. And I said, no, I'm not really that short. I'm bent down here getting some equipment out. And then it said, stay. And at that point, the owner of the device said to me, Mike, would you like to get in on a conversation? It's asking you if you want to stay and talk with us. And I go, well, okay, I'm interested in this equipment. I said, but, you have a full house in here. There's no place to sit. And immediately the Ovilus said, posterior? Yeah, and that's where it really caught my ear, because here, that's not a regular word something would blurt out.
True.
But figuring I was in a doctor's house.
That would be appropriate, yeah?
It would be appropriate, precisely. And that was my first experience with the Ovilus, and I was very intrigued by it.
Wow.
It invited me. It invited me to their conversation.
Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah.
Because I often wonder how much they want to interject in conversations, but either they can't or they just need the method to get in there and to be able to talk.
Well, I think all part of that is true. Some are not allowed to speak, maybe because they're afraid that they may give out too much information, or they may ask you to do something that is not allowed. And, of course, there goes you asking them a question they're not allowed to answer.
Gotcha.
So, all that has to be taken into consideration. But, I really believe that there's a lot of them out there that want to talk. There was one incident at Ramblewood, for instance, using the Ovilus, which I thought was extremely interesting after I analyzed everything, but I was so sad at myself. Actually mad at myself, really. Here's what happened. I was doing an interview with a spirit using the Ovilus, and the Ovilus was talking to me, and then at one point, the obelisk stopped speaking. And I still heard a question coming from them. And I couldn't quite make out all the question because, truthfully, at that time, I was somewhat an infant in this particular, how can I put this, style of communicating. And I asked him to repeat the question. And I said, I heard, am I what? And then at that point, I actually heard the answer. It was someone else asking the question, am I dead?
Really? Wow.
Yeah. Yeah. But my ability of hearing spirits directly was somewhat infantile at that point, and it came and went. Even today, it's not developed where I would like it, and I do miss some questions and answers like that, which is why I always, and whenever I'm doing some kind of interview, I will always bring the obelisk for that reason, just in case they can't get it to me directly. I can at least get it through the obelisk. So I don't want to miss their question, because their questions, when they're asking you a question, it's important to them. Otherwise, they wouldn't waste energy on it.
Right.
So I don't want to take the chance of them wasting their energy accordingly. And, you know, it was just so interesting that this was my first experience with direct communication. But what was also interesting in this entire conversation was it was involved with two different entities. The one entity who was actually talking through the obelisk paused and stopped talking in order that the other spirit had something to say.
I got another question from the
Sure.
chat room from Tabby, and
Alrighty.
she wants to know: do you think shadow people are spirits or some other type of being or entity?
I think they are some other type. What type, I haven't determined yet. I started doing some investigation into who or what they are. I haven't been able to come up with any answers. I was even sending emails back and forth with Rosemary Golly for quite some time on that subject. Her and I were discussing it together. And although there's a lot of, we think it's this, we think it's that out there, no one has pinpointed anything that could be called logical scientific evidence as to what they are. So that's still a wide open thing.
Okay, got another question, looks like in the chat room here from Sherry. She said, have you seen portals or vortexes?
Yes. Yes. Definitely.
And
okay.
what are they?
Well, like I was describing earlier, they're a travel point. It's like a subway ride from one part of where they are to another part of where they're going. And since spirits now, remember, they don't have a body to lug around with them. So all they got is their energy. So their energy can be twisted, pulled, turned, folded, and everything else. So they get more entities at the same time through the same subway. But, you know, each one does have its individual shape and size, but it's not necessarily what you're seeing if you can see them. I don't think everybody can see a portal. I've seen an input and an output in one building of a portal and actually filmed some of it. This again was part of the information was I'm ready to start understanding this, so they're going to let me see it. And that's what I can say. Yes, they're real. Yes, they happen. And yes, it's like a travel subway for them. For both good and evil, I'll say.
Wow.
But certainly it doesn't have to be a mirror or any of that stuff, right? It's just
No.
It's just somewhere where the point of time and place.
And here's something interesting too. Right after I stopped talking and there was a pause of silence before Henry responded, there was an echoey voice, very faint, that I heard, and it said yes.
Okay.
Obviously, something was confirming what I was saying.
Oh, okay. I was just wondering what it was saying yes to. Okay.
Yeah, it was right after I explained about the vortex.
Okay. Yeah, it probably is a good way for them to travel from one place to another. It's just like on Star Trek or Star Wars, you're kind of like evaporating one place and coming back in another place.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And what's interesting too is, in their case, since energy can be changed in form and not destroyed, they can interconnect between themselves to do this travel. It's like your electricity going through your lamp cord. All those electrical impulses are lined up behind each other and keep flowing through. So, the wire itself is not moving, but the electricity is, and is going through it, one piece connected to the other. And in pretty much the same way, that's how vortexes work.
Who had that one? I just heard something.
Yeah, I heard something too. I couldn't make it out though.
Little.
Was it on yours or Barbara's?
Yep, mine.
Oh, okay. And what did it say?
Little.
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 You can't be talking about me, I don't guess.
No. Yeah. Sometimes the word used may be a little more abstract than what we intended to be, only because they don't want to waste the energy giving you a more elaborate answer. It could have been saying, for instance, now my answer was a little bit of the answer, which is true, because if I were to sit here and scientifically explain to you all the science behind it, we'd all be bored. So I do my best to translate my knowledge to an understandable language that everybody could understand.
Right. Because that's how, yeah.
So if
People understand it.
if spirits, once they're crossed over, and they wanted to come back and say something to you or let you know that they're okay, like for family members or something like that. Apparently that don't happen too often, does it? I mean, I've never had anything like that with
I
mine.
know, in all honesty. I mean, while they're here, it seems they will or can, if they're allowed to communicate. But I really haven't found a case where anyone has gone and come back. Maybe at that point, you're no longer allowed to re-enter this part of the realm.
So
maybe it's a complete fear of them giving away all the goodies, so to speak.
So how long do you think they're here in this realm before they completely crossed over and can't come back?
Well, I think that is a kind of a relative term, because in their world there is no time.
Right.
So it could be any amount of time. Referring it to our time, it could be anything from a moment to hours to days. Some people are left here for a period of time for a certain purpose, to give some information back, or to instruct someone in a proper way of doing something, or taking care of their life, or what have you. And once that job is completed, it's time to move on. And that's what they do.
Wow.
Well, it would kind of make sense because you don't see that many Roman soldier ghosts running around.
Well,
not around here anyway.
That's what I was getting ready to say. You'd probably have to be over there
True,
and
yeah.
somewhere else where there was actually Roman soldiers at.
Right.
That's the way that I would look at it.
You don't see any velociraptor ghosts here either. So.
Well, they had plenty of those things here, so.
They'd be complaining, we had feathers. What were they doing in those movies?
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay.
Jurassic Park was totally inaccurate.
I was watching a one of the YouTube videos where they were talking about how, all the paleontologists are finding out, most of these dinosaurs we're used to most likely had plumage and feathers and such, and they're like, yeah, but we have to go with the sixth grade 1950s fifth grade science books, because no one's gonna like, hey, what the.
When they had Thanksgiving, they had one big Thanksgiving.
Yeah, really. But it wasn't T-Rex doing the carving.
Right.
Interesting, though.
It is funny, though, that they discovered that most of the big and so-called nasty dinosaurs were mostly vegetarians.
Yeah.
Yes, a lot of them were. Mm-hmm.
And the T-Rex probably only went about 5 miles an hour.
Right.
You probably outrun them. Did you hear about the fact that there was a time that there was a species of crocodile that ran around on two legs? Like
Yeah.
that?
Yeah.
Like, whoa, I don't want. Those are nasty little cusses as it is now. Like that. Yeah, they just sort of like.
I don't want to get in a foot race with him.
Yeah, they had a lot of things I wouldn't wanted to meet up with way back then. So
yeah,
and there's a lot of it.
Want to win this race, or do you want to be around to tell about it?
No. And there's a lot of them nowadays that I wouldn't want to run up against either. So.
Well, I had two favorite dinosaurs. I liked the Dimetrodon because I liked the fin on its back, but they were very carnivorous. But then you had the Ankylosaurus, which looked like a giant turtle, but had these massive, like, jutting spines around the outside and a club tail. I'm like, yeah, it's a vegetarian, but it's probably still going to, like, even if it just rubs up against you, it's like being, like, Lucille on The Walking Dead or something.
Well, maybe they had to protect themselves, so.
Well, yeah.
But you never know.
No, never know. Never know. Okay, so have you been like, or I should say, do you investigate around your home?
Oh, yeah, I do. And a lot of times, honestly, I don't have to because they'll just come out of the walls and do what to.
Really? Wow.
Yeah. It's like, I don't know, I think I said this earlier while I was waiting for our time to come up to do this show tonight. I was in my bedroom, just propping my feet up for a little bit. And over in the corner where there is no chair was the no-faced woman. She was sitting in the chair watching the Three Stooges with me. And when I turned over and looked at her, she got up and walked out.
Wow. Huh.
I guess maybe that was my response back, saying, "You walked out on me last time. This time I'm walking out on you."
Yeah, I've never wanted to break my equipment out and try to do anything like that in my house. I'll go somewhere else and do it.
Well, you didn't have to in the other house. You had stuff happening without having to investigate.
Yeah, but I didn't try to investigate that. I mean, I heard a few things, but I never tried to use a recorder to get anything. So, yeah. We did hear voices and stuff in the other house. Nothing bad. You would just
Or
hear,
mischievous.
Yeah, you would hear a voice, or I would hear one sound like Patsy saying something, or we'd hear kitty cats meow and they wasn't nothing around nowhere. Just different things like that. So.
Well, there's a question in the chat room, and I find it really, I didn't burst out laughing, but the question is, does he goes home with him? And I'm thinking, just how is Barbara doing these days?
Honestly, I don't know. I'm sure her husband is having a ball of his life. Well, it wasn't intended to be a pun, but anyway, because I haven't heard from her or him, so I imagine they got Ramblewood to themselves right now, and until I show up again, and then I'll probably get an EVP saying, "Oh, it's Mike. He's back."
Well, have they ever traveled to some place where you've gone to?
Well, yes. As a matter of fact, remember the season that we went to the brewery?
Yes, that's where it kept saying, Mike.
Yeah,
Mike.
And I turned my Ovilus on as I was setting up the rest of my equipment, and Don Allison, I think his name is,
right, was
sitting next to it, and he called me back to it. He said, this thing just started talking, and he keeps saying, Mike, 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 where are you, Mike, Mike? And, it shocked him because he's been on a couple of investigations at that point, he told me, and even his own house for that matter. But he never had something actually looking for me as if it was a telephone call. So, yeah. So he was flabbergasted about it. And I walked back. I said, all right, I'm here. What do you want? And then it starts saying, is Barbara with you? I said, no, I did not bring Barbara here. And Don said, who's Barbara? I said, this poor dead guy's wife. I do not bring her home. My investigation. They have conversation with you like this? I said, all the time.
That was at the brewery, yes, sir.
Yeah. Yes, it was at the brewery.
Yeah. Don's had a lot of stuff in his house too. So
yeah.
Yeah, he's investigated a lot and found a lot of history out about the house. So it's pretty interesting.
Yeah,
if you get his books and read them, I think it's I Met a Ghost in Gettysburg, and
it's a good book.
He'll be telling you all about his house, and then he's got another 2 books, I think, 2 more books. On the same thing. I think he's got a total of 3 of them. They're real interesting read of the investigations and stuff that he's done in his house, remodeling and everything, because it was a real rundown house when he first bought it and moved in.
Right.
And then his trips to Gettysburg, some of the things that has happened to him there. So good books to read. So, and you've got your books. Did you finally get it published? Is it out now? Or
yes, it is published. It's definitely published. It's been out for about 4 or 5 months now. I'm hoping that people will buy it and start reading it. It's a long book in itself. It's kind of written in a Sherlock Holmes type manner. I think they call it third person removed. So as I'm doing the investigation, I'm kind of scripting it, and that's how the book was written. As to each thing we did and what order we did it in is how each chapter is set up.
And what is the name of that book again?
Now you got me off guard here.
Is it the story?
It's a long name, and for some reason I keep my brain goes blank on it.
Is it debunking?
I can't get my computer to stop here.
Okay.
But it's just the urban legend explained of Emily and Mary Worthington. It's about their 2 deaths. It's available on Amazon. Just look my name up, and it'll come up there as one of my 5 books. And what's interesting is there will be I don't know whether I would call it a second part or a revised edition in the near future, because when I went back to Ramblewood and to tell everyone there, I'm talking about the spirits now, that I finished the book and published it, and the story is now out on an EVP sets or EMI, as I usually call them. I got a recording on the RT unit that said, yes, but you didn't give the maid's name in the book.
Wow.
And yeah, that kind of stopped me for the moment. And I even said right there out loud, I said, I didn't know the maid's name. And nowhere in any of the information I was able to collect was I able to have the maid's name. But I'm certain now they're going to find a way to get me that information. So wow. I'm going to have to add an extended chapter in the book involving the maid. The maid was murdered trying to tell the girl's father who and what was going on.
Wow. Mm-hmm. Very, very interesting, though. So, what is your plans, I should say, for the near future? Because you aren't going to be able to go out investigating other places if the corona is really, going to get bad again.
Well, I still have my website to redo that I haven't gotten to yet. It had some problems with some of the programs, and I got to reset that. So that's one of the things I'm going to be doing. I'm also trying to, even though I can't do it directly, I'm trying to recruit some additional investigators that have a scientific background that want to work with us to come up with some good answers to questions, and also do more analyzing, and which I keep constantly refining my audio programs to filter out bad noise and what have you, so that I can better understand what it is the spirits are saying, because their audio is very raw in a sense. It has no spikes to it that actually cause the sounds that we normally hear when we hear people talking, which are your echoes and what have you. And hopefully with that, I can get a hold on some of the equipment that I started working on and never completed. So maybe I can move that up a session. What's funny is during this whole virus thing, I was actually moving in the same apartment building, but I moved from a second floor apartment to a first floor apartment because I don't know, me and staircases don't do well. So so now I've eliminated the staircase, where I just come into the building and go right in my apartment. So that's a good thing. And honestly, I'm still putting stuff away, but it's working out. I really have plenty to do, believe me.
Well, now, I know that you've been doing all this at Bramblewood. Is there another location that you're going to start investigating besides Bramblewood?
Not at this point. I'm hoping to look for one and do some. Some of my people and I have been discussing about the possibility of certain places as a consideration to investigate. But nothing is laid down in cement yet. I'm hoping to be able to have something even closer right here in Baltimore that we could use. We found, our last discussion, we found this old hotel. Of course, now it's shut down right at the moment, but it's an old Fells Point, Maryland hotel, and allegedly several people have died there. Some gangsters were killed there, and they see ghosts around there. So it looks like something maybe we want to look into, and maybe we could hook up something with the owners to do something there. So that's a possibility. Beyond that, everything's still up in the air because our famous virus has got everything up in the air.
Right.
So we're trying, but, you know.
Right. Well, we're down to just about 4 minutes. And I do want to thank you again for taking the time to be with us.
I enjoy it always.
Well, I know. And you're one of the ones that has all kinds of information. When we get you on, you can just talk and talk and talk about it, which is great.
Yeah.
I know Barbara likes it. So
Yeah.
with that, why don't you take and give out all your information where people can contact you or follow you or be able to ask you questions and whatever. And then I want you to stay on till we're off, and we'll talk with you for a minute.
Sure. All righty. Well, what did I say? The Paranormal website is down for the moment. I got some revising and working on it. But nonetheless, I'm still available on Facebook. You can find me on there. You can also find the Paranormal Man website or Facebook site. And that's kind of like an external group. You can join the group. And I talk about different things we're going to do on there and for investigations coming up. So, you know, that'll keep you abreast of what's happening. And you might want to enjoy it, you know, and join up with a group, or even join our apprentice program, which I have, which basically it's a combination of all the different types of investigating techniques that everybody already uses, but we've removed all those processes that do nothing. So that way, you know, the answers you're going to get, the questions you're going to get answered are going to be directly done without all the stuff in the middle that bores both you and them. We already know this field is pretty much like bass fishing, but there is ways of making it enjoyable, like what we're doing right now, talking to this show, and we're laughing through it because, you know, there are humorous moments in it. So you can still contact me at the Paranormal Man number, 443-326-8568, or you can email me at Mike, all lowercase now, at theparanormalman.com, all one word. So those are your best ways to get a hold of me.
All right. Well, we appreciate it, and we'll talk with you for just another minute here in a second.
Sure.
With that, next week is the 4th of July, and we're going to be having Rebecca Brumble on, talking with her at Fort Mifflin. A lot of good stuff with that. And so tune in, and hope you guys have a great weekend and next week also. And till then, this is Henry Foister,
Jeffrey Gould,
And Barbara Duncan.
and we'll see you next week at the same time. Good night, everybody.
Bye, y'all.
You've been listening to the Paranormal View on the ParaX Radio Network. Join us again next week at the same time for more of the Paranormal View.